Good evening, everyone. Welcome to today's session by Education USA in association with WOW. I'm Ronak and I'm your host for today. Our speaker is Suheil Imtiaz, an advisor from Education USA and from the Hyderabad office. The session will focus on steps for students to go and study in USA. On the call today is also our founder, Paresh Masade. I'd like to invite him to say a few words before we begin the session.
Sorry, guys. Okay. Hi, everyone. I am Paresh Masade from. Just switch on. Yeah. Hello, everyone. I am Paresh Masade, founder and CEO of WOW. At WOW, we basically help institutions with their alumni relations, and we've been working with close to about 1,000 education institutions across the country. We basically help the institutions with helping the students actually with connecting with their alumni. Probably someone who's working in US, who's working in a company or studying in US. That's what we do with our alumni platform. This specific initiative is called Career Center, where we are connecting you with experts in the industry to answer your queries specifically on 4 topics. One is higher education, whether in India or abroad. Career support in understanding about various technologies. We've been doing a series of webinars on that, and definitely entrepreneurship. So 4 major topics that we touch upon. So this today's session is specifically in partnership with Education USA, which is an official network of a network that's helping students to study in USA. That's an official source of information for you about studying in USA. And we have with us Mr. Suheil, who is a student advisor at Education USA, working out of the office in actually in the consulate in Hyderabad. And Suheil, welcome to this panel. I would like to invite you here.
Thank you, Paresh, for the introduction, and Rohanak as well. I'm so happy to be here with you all. My name is Suheil. I'm going to share my screen now, and we will begin the presentation in a second. Yeah, I hope you can see the screen now.
Yes, we can.
Yes. Okay. Perfect. So, like I said, I am with Education USA, and I am an Education USA advisor, and our office is based out of the US consulate in Hyderabad. I'll very quickly tell you briefly about our organization first before we begin today's session, and then we'll take a look at what we're going to be talking or doing in today's session. So Education USA is funded by the US Department of State, which is equivalent of, say, Ministry of External Affairs in India. I mean, in essence, it's a government agency funded and supported by the US government. And our mandate is to provide accurate, comprehensive, current, and if I may also add, unbiased information on US higher education. In that sense, we are the official source on US higher education. And our job is to help anyone who's looking to study in the US, point them in the right direction, give them the correct information, because there's a lot of misinformation in the market, and that is why we have been set up by the US Department of State. We are present in over 170 countries with over 400 centers, and in India we have 7 centers currently, and I'm based out of Hyderabad office, and we are co-located within the US Consulate General here. And wherever you are, you can reach out to the nearest Education USA center. And USIEF, which is United States India Education Foundation, is an organization that manages few of the Education USA offices in India. All right, so let's take a very quick look at some of the features that make US a very popular destination for international students, or why US higher education system is very well known. I'm not going to get into the details because many of you know or heard about all of this through popular culture, TV, everywhere you read them and read about them and hear about them day in and day out. So let me just focus on the value which you can see on your screens. Now, see, studying in the US is not necessarily cheap. But having said that, there is something for everyone who wants to study in the US, and there's something that you can plan based on your requirements and priorities, and then you can find a school that's a good fit for you, even in terms of budget, right? There are some scholarships, there is financial aid that is on offer. The key here would be to find a school that's a good fit for you. So keep that in mind. I'm going to be repeating the word, the best fit here, right? So we'll come back to it also through the presentation, right? And of course, the flexibility is, there's a lot that is available to the students in terms of the choices that they have. They can choose from over 5,000 accredited schools that are there in the US, and thousands of programs, right? And you can choose what classes do you want to do. I mean, some of the institutes in India also allow that, but this has been the hallmark of a US university. So keep that in mind. There's a lot of flexibility that is available. You can very easily do double majors both at undergrad and grad level as well, right? And of course, the US universities are known for their quality, and they are reputed for their faculty, the kind of research that's happening there. We don't really have to get into the details. Each university has its own reputation, and they're known for certain things. The key here would be to find a school that's a good fit for you, right? In fact, I would go on to say that choose a school or even the country, based on, your priorities and your requirements, whether that's meeting that or not, right? That's how you would choose the country, that's how you would choose the school, and that's how you would choose the program as well, right? This is what we emphasize at Education USA. Now, very briefly, there are certain basics that I would like to focus on, and I understand that most of you are looking for grad education in the US, which is your masters and beyond, PhD or even postdoc as well. So I would be not focusing so much on the undergrad part, but there may be some few instances of focus on undergrad as well here, but I'm going to be focusing mostly on grad for today's presentation. So let's very quickly talk about the intakes. Most of you must be aware that there are a couple of popular intakes, which is the fall, which is in August, and then in spring, which is in January. And apart from this, there's something called as rolling admission, which happens throughout the year. So basically, there would not be a specific deadline. You would just apply to those colleges under rolling admission, the schools, and then they will take you in as and when there is a vacancy available, right? Now, also let's very quickly take a look at the types of institutions. I will just focus on the broad areas there, that is public and private. Like the name suggests, public are funded by the government agencies. These are essentially the land grants institutes in the US, but just for our ease, let's think of them as being funded by government or government agencies. And private are, of course, funded by private organizations, individuals, corporations, foundations, etc. Right? Many of you must have heard about liberal arts colleges, very famous across the world. There are specialized institutions that focus on areas like, say, for example, fine arts, and then there are schools that focus especially on technology, like it could be robotics, it could be information technology, anything. They could be very solely focused on these aspects, and conservatories are the ones that usually focus on music, right? And specialized institutions could be business schools and things like that as well. Right, now, just let's go back to the public versus private here. Just keep this in mind because it's an important aspect. Now, it is not necessary that public institutes are always less expensive than the private one. It could be the other way around, and also depending upon the program that you're going to, the level of the program, the university, and most importantly, the region as well. So keep that in mind. That it could be like in some places private schools could be much cheaper to attend than the public schools. And also keep this in mind that if you are looking for financial aid or scholarships, especially at master's and PhD level, keep in mind that, again, it depends on you and your area of research and your area of interest. That there could be a little more funding available in private schools, and naturally, for you to get scholarships, maybe, right? Again, it all depends on the school that you're going to, the program that you're choosing. So keep this in mind, because it depends. Some people may not be looking for any kind of scholarship, especially at undergrad level. So, but usually most PhD programs are funded in the US. So keep this in mind. These are some of the differences that you should be aware of. And let's now talk about the deadlines for graduate admission. There's a slide towards the end as well, and that will be much clearer. But for now, let's just talk about it here as well very quickly. So there is something called as a priority deadline. So what happens here is, especially if you are seeking a financial aid, sometimes the university may have a deadline before the regular deadline. See, the regular deadline usually for fall intake is around December, but it could be, say, maybe November or maybe October, especially if you're seeking any kind of financial assistance, right? And then there is, of course, regular decision, which is regular deadline, which is around December, and in some cases January also, depends on the university. And some universities do also have the option of rounds, that is each intake, like say for example fall, may have 2 or 3 rounds. Again, this is usually typical for some of the business schools. Again, not all the schools in the US. Some schools, follow this. So, again, I would like to point out here that the US higher education system is very autonomous. So it is very important that, you go to the university website, or, get in touch with someone like me and try and find out that information, which is very crucial. All right, so these were some of the basics, and now let's move on to the model that Education USA follows, right? Now, we have divided the whole navigation process into 5 steps, and this is what we advocate and we encourage students also to follow. At least, this is how we think or we provide our services as well, right? It could be, you could be at any of these steps. Like some of you could be at, say, now, let's say, maybe at financing part, or somebody could still be in their first year. They have not even thought about going to the US, or studying even abroad. They just want to take a. You could be at any stage. That's your step 1, which is researching your options, then financing your studies, and third one would be completing your application. 4th is applying for your student visa, and 5th is pre-departure. I will be talking about each of these a little in detail, but if you do have any questions, please put them in the chat box, and we'll try and answer as many questions we can today. If not, we have a way for you to put those questions, and we will answer them later as well. So without any delay, let's jump into our 5 steps. Let's begin with the first one, which is researching your options, right? Now, think of this as doing your homework, right? If you're in the market, say for example, to buy a mobile phone or a car, right? You would check with your friends, you would do your research, and you will check, what is the latest, hardware or software, which works where best. You do your homework, right? It's very similar, right? Before you decide about anything, I would even say, go to the extent I've already mentioned that, before you decide that in the US or any other country for that matter, do all your research properly, because the key, especially for US schools, would be finding a school that's best fit for you. I mean, at Education USA, we do not officially endorse any ranking, but you as a student are free to follow them and check them. But we still recommend that, because, the differences are very nuanced, and a student has to choose. So for example, sometimes it just boils down to the budgetary aspects. Like, say, for example, one university is probably offering you a better financial aid. even if you compare month-on-month basis, right? And then you may want to choose that. But for somebody else, it could be about the brand or the industry association or what they have offered you in return, maybe on-campus job experience or something like that, right? It all depends. Or in some cases, it could be waiver of tuition fee. Even that is possible. We will talk about. So the key here would be to focus on what is a best fit. Right now, essentially, it depends on you, and so you need to choose schools that are important for you. Right now, we have a handout on our website, educationusa.state.gov. You can just go there and download this handout there, priorities handout. Just answer those questions. It'll help you through the process, not just in the beginning, but actually through the process on how to choose a school that's a best fit for you. Now, essentially, what you will be doing here is, and even from our side, because we are the official source and set up by the US government, what we require you to do is you come up with a list initially, right? Nobody needs to hand you down a list. You can come up with your own list, do your own research, check about the country, check about the schools, check about the faculty there. And there are certain tools which we can share with you. Just go to our website, educationusa.state.gov, or you can get in touch with us with Paresh or Rohanak as well, and we'll help you out there, right? Come up with a long list in the beginning, say 15, 20, or even more. It doesn't matter, right? And then as you go along in the process, you will have to choose or narrow it down to say about 5 or 6 schools. Now this is the key there, right? Now, because this will not be same for everyone, it differs from person to person, right? And you need to choose schools like, say for example, have a good mix of reach schools, have a good mix of match schools, and have a good mix of that mix should contain safe schools as well, right? And also I did already mention about the requirements. You need to check with the university specifically once you have a shortlist, what are the requirements for that specific university, because they are highly autonomous. There is no uniform system in the US higher education scenario. So let's move on. Now, how do you choose a school that's the best fit for you? There are certain aspects that you can see on your screen now, right? We will get to a few of them in a second. Before this, I would like to point out that please make sure that you are checking the accreditation of the school as well. Please visit our website, educationusa.state.gov. We will have information about accreditation there. Accreditation is basically the recognition. If you have any, it's fairly straightforward and simple process. If you have any difficulty, you can always reach out to us. You can email us or WhatsApp us or even call us. We should be able to help you out there if you have any difficulty in ascertaining the accreditation, because accreditation works very differently in the US. The school will be recognized nationally, regionally. The program needs to be recognized depending upon what program that you're doing. So keep that in mind. Don't really worry too much about it, but we are there to help you out if you need to do. And now let's take a look at some of the aspects that you need to keep in mind while you are choosing a school that would be a good fit for you, right? Look at the level of the program that you want to go to. Do you want to go for a master's or a PhD or an integrated PhD as well? That is also an option that you can keep in mind, because usually for PhD in the US, usually, not always, it is fully funded if you opt for a PhD program or an integrated PhD program as well. Of course, they will check at your credentials, they will check at your research publications and things like that, where you have represented and things like that, and then only they will give you that scholarship or tuition fee waiver. I mean, there are certain limited scholarships available even at master's level. We will come back to it in a second in the next step, right? Check about the acceptance rate, right? Especially when you're doing your the shortlisting and the final shortlist of about 6, 7, 8 colleges, make sure you have looked at the acceptance rate as well, right? The acceptance rate could be anywhere between 6 to 7%, and it goes on to 50, 60% also for some of the schools. So keep that in mind and take a look at the size of the department, faculty profile, what are the research facilities that are available, what's happening there, the industry connect that specific university has, depending upon the area that you want to work or research in, and also probably look at the geographical location, because we have seen some of the students finding it hard a little later with the climate there, because it's a huge country with lots of, climatic zones and time zones. Some areas are very cold, some areas are very close to, like our weather here, like in India, some people, it's just a matter of preference, right? If you think that, you are comfortable with, say, the campus location, urban or, suburban or countryside, or if you think that, you just want to go to these 6 professors in the US, right? That's how you would start working on it. That's the, or you would, apply to these top, 5 schools, and you're looking at which one is offering you a good scholarship. This all works individually. So these are some of the things that you need to keep in mind when you do your shortlisting. All right, so let's move on to step 2, which is financing your studies. Now, I've seen some of your questions already. There were a lot of questions about financing, how to finance your studies. Now, frankly, these scholarships are merit-based in the US. Keep that in mind. And unless you are a US citizen, then there would be some financial aid that could be made available. And if you're eligible for in-state tuition, again, the rules differ from state to state. There could be some more deductions in your total tuition fee that you pay. But otherwise, this is a merit-based scholarship. They look at your profile holistically, not just at one aspect, which is which institute did you attend, or which how much is your GRE score, right? It's not usually that way, because everybody would have some sort of a chance, depending upon, again, on their best fit, right? If there is a minimum cutoff, then for GRE, then there is a minimum cutoff, right? But most likely, they would also look at all the other aspects also. Right? They would look at your essays. Essays, I mean the statement of purposes, that is what they're referred to for master's or graduate programs. Essays are for undergrad programs, make a huge difference. Your letters of recommendation, again, make a huge difference, especially if you're looking for financial assistance, right? Now, keep that in mind. A same person may get some sort of a financial aid for the same profile, but that same person may not get, at a different institute for a different program, maybe, right? So keep that in mind. We will talk about those as well. Now, what I would like to do is, I would like to divide this step into, again, 3 sub-steps, 2.1, 2.2, 2.3. That's not there on the screens. Just, pay attention to what I'm saying. And then, it's a very simple thing that you need to keep in mind, how you can finance your studies. Now, 2.1, let's talk about that. Before we get into sub-steps, I just want to, draw your attention to this aspect of the slide. You need to keep in mind the cost of attendance, right? Now, again, many people will have what would be the cost of attendance. It's very hard to say because it differs from institute to institute, school to school, and region also, right? Keep in mind that you're accounting for both the tuition fees as well as the living expenses. Now, these 2 things you need to keep in mind, because most of the time you may come across only the tuition fee, and you may be ignoring living costs, which depending upon the region could be very high, and later it might sort of land you in trouble. So keep that in mind, that you're accounting for both tuition fees, which includes all the miscellaneous things like you can see on the screen, lab facilities, libraries, etc., and living with your food, your boarding, room, security, health insurances, all those aspects as well, right? Right, if I have to put a number, many of you will have a question. It's very hard to put it down. It can be anywhere between, say, 15 to 20 lakhs a year to, it'll go on to 75, 80 lakhs a year as well. This is without the scholarships or any kind of financial aid. So just let's go back to where we were. Now let's divide this into 3 sub-steps. So the 2.1 would be while you're doing your research. 2.2 would be while you're there as a student. 2.3 would be after you finish your program of study in the US, right? This is how you should plan your finances. And in fact, you should start doing it while you're doing your research also, research itself, and do your research, talk to your sponsors. It could be your parents, it could be self, it could be your uncles, grandparents, or whoever, is sponsoring. It could be in some cases even your company as well, right? If you have some sort of work experience or already an employee there. And keep that in mind. So who's sponsoring, what would be the cost of attendance, have a chat with them and arrive at how you plan to do that also. It's very important that you to do that research as well. Right now, while you are applying and doing research, I would urge that once you have that long list, please do go to the website of the university, or please visit our website educationusa.state.gov. We have a lot of information on scholarships that are on offer. Not for all the 5,000 institutes in the US. It's very hard for us even to keep track of that data, but we do have information for many of the universities, right? And go to that universities and check. Like, so for example, I as a student, I want to study masters in computer science in the US. I have a certain profile, and I have shortlisted 3 schools, an example, and I go there and I apply to these 3 schools, and unfortunately, nowhere I'm eligible for scholarship. Let's assume. But for my same profile, same background, same country, and everything, there could be a scholarship for me in a slightly different program in the same university. That's very much possible as well. And I could be getting even up to 30, 40, 50% also for a master's program, right? A lot depends on what ultimately that you want, right? So make sure that, you go to the website and check whether there's a dean scholarship or whether there's a president scholarship. And of course, there are certain private scholarships also that are available even at, the Government of India level or the state governments or the state that you come from. Make sure that, you are aware of those we may have information for Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, and Orissa governments that offer to certain, sections of the society. And there are certain private, like, Wipro Foundations and Tata Foundation, and many others also who offer. The thing is that they keep on changing every year. So you have to, do your research properly. But these are some of the options that you have, right? And then identifying, your sources. We have sort of discussed, have a chat with who your sponsors are, what would be the expenses there. Financial documents, we'll come back to it in a second, right? 2.1 is that basically you need to do your research while you're applying or when you're doing your research, right? 2.2 is while you're there as a student. Now, while you're there as a student in the US, you are allowed to work on campus for part-time, which is about 20 hours a week. The only thing that I would like to stress here is that make sure that you are doing authorized work. That is very important. Make sure that you keep that in mind. Do not break the law of the land there. If you have any questions, please get in touch with the DSO, that is the designated school official. They will be able to help you out in finding authorized work. Now, this authorized work could be working on a campus cafeteria, library, working as a research assistant, working as a graduate assistant, working in the lab, or working for your professors. Any of these aspects, these are all part-time jobs that are available to you there while you're there as a student. And while you're there as a student as well, you have the option of doing curricular practical training as well, right? This is usually between the semesters. You would be working in the area of your major, and you will be paid for that as well, right? Now, 2.3, which is after you finish your program. Now, after you finish your program, depending upon what program that you've done, if it's a STEM program, which is science, tech, engineering, and math program, you are allowed to work up to 36 months. And if it's a non-STEM program, you are allowed to work up to 18 programs. Now, you may have questions whether it's a STEM or non-STEM program. Again, please go to the website of the university, check how the university has categorized that as, right? And then decide whether it's a STEM or a non-STEM program. Because for computer science, of course, it's STEM program, but there are certain hybrid programs these days which could be in the realm of finances, but they could be categorized as STEM program as well, right? So keep that in mind, and you can check for that as well. If it's a STEM program, you can work in the US for up to 36 months while you're there, after you finish your studies. So we've sort of covered most of these aspects here. Now let's jump into step 3. Okay, now this is undergrad. Let me just move on to the grad component. Now this also, I would advise that you start as early as you can. At least give a year's time. Like, so for example, if you are planning to join the fall of 2020, you should have started the previous summer. When you check the requirements, please do give your GRE or GMAT whatever exam, whatever the requirement is, there will be English proficiency tests as well that you may need to give. It could be IELTS, it could be TOEFL, it could be Duolingo, or it could be PT, doesn't matter. Just give your free practice tests and figure out, what you're good at, and also check with the university what they are asking. Universities are usually neutral about these English language proficiency tests, so you can choose from whatever you, are, comfortable with, depending upon your background, right? And around August is when the forms would open. You would apply and check the deadlines. And if you're opting for a priority deadline, that is, if you're looking for finances, there could be priority based deadlines, which would be usually around October, right? And if you're opting for a regular decision, then make sure that you are submitting your letters of recommendation. And in some cases, they may also ask for resume. Again, it's not standardized. It's not compulsory at all the schools in the US. Some schools do, some schools don't ask for these, right? And December, January would be the deadline for the regular admission. So keep this in mind, start as early as possible, at least 12 months in advance. Give your tests, and yeah, if you have any questions about this, we can answer towards the end, right? Now, let's take a look at very quickly the graduate application package. Now, these are the components that are involved in your graduate application, right? Now, it's not necessary that all of these are required. Some of them are optional, as you can see on the screen. Of course, there would be an application form and followed by a fee. In some cases, there could be tuition fee. There could be a waiver for the application form. Please check, because it depends, every year, sometimes, they offer for Indian students application fee waiver as well, right? Now, they will need your transcripts of your undergrad level, right? You may have to get it from your institute or the board or the university that you attended, in transcripts. And in some rare cases, you may have to get them evaluated by a third party. Not, again, very common, because they know very well about the Indian education scenario. So not always, but in some rare cases, you may be required to do that, right? And give your standardized tests, GRE subject, in cases some schools ask for subject tests as well. Some don't. Some even don't even ask for GRE, right? And it would be GMAT or whatever program that you're studying for. Check for the English proficiency language tests as well. Keep that in mind. Whatever you are comfortable with, right? And then letters of recommendation, again, very important. Keep that in mind. You need it from about three people, three recommenders usually, right? And it could be all three could be your professors, or one could be from, if you have any good internship experience or work experience, maybe you want to get it from your manager or supervisor there at work. You could do that as well, or all three could be from your professors. Now, key here would be that you reach out to someone who can talk about your work on a professional level and who has seen your work. It need not be from the dean, or it need not be from the head of the institute or anything like that. It should be from somebody who can talk about your work in a positive manner, of course, right? You would go to a person who thinks who knows about your work and can talk positively about it, right? We do these specialized sessions on each of these aspects as well, like on application, on statement of purposes. We could plan those also in future if you guys are interested, right? And in some cases, there may be a video component required. They may ask for a interview also in some cases. Again, these are all optional, right? And for PhD, of course, they will look at your proof of research capability, that whether you have done research like you have claimed, and they would certainly want to take a look at your writing samples as well, right? So keep that in mind. And then, of course, there will be an interview. And like I mentioned, PhD program is usually fully funded in the US. Usually that's the key term here, but in most cases, in fact, yeah. All right, now step 4, applying to your student visas. I would just like to point out here that we work very closely with the US visa officers, and we go on joint outreaches, and they're the ones who would be talking to you about the actual process. But what I would talk to you about here is what you can see on the screens, and then I will also very briefly tell you what a visa officer would look for in an application. I know that many of you would be just very curious about that as well, right? Now, usually what happens is this: once you finish your application and submit your applications in December, January, right? You will start receiving your admits. And what we encourage students is to choose one admit among those 5 or 6 admits that you receive, right? You may, if you apply for 8 colleges, you may get from 8, or you may get for only 3, or you may get for 5, depending upon how you choose your selection there, right? Once you receive those admits, you need to send them the confirmation and the required documents, and these documents would be usually like how you're able to fund your studies, proof of your funding. It's usually bank statements and things like that, nothing complicated. If you ever have any questions, please do reach out to us directly or through Paresh and his team, right? And once you do that, you will receive I-20 from that institutions. Once you receive the I-20, you need to pay the service fee, which is about $350 now. Once you pay the service fee, you can go in for opting for the visa interview and also the biometrics, the fingerprints, right? Now, once you schedule an interview, you go for the interview. Now, what happens in the interview? What is that? The 3 things that the visa officer is looking for is what I'm going to tell you now. Very important information, not available outside. Just pay attention if you want. There are only 3 things that any visa officer across the world, a US visa officer, is looking for in a student. 1, are you a qualified and a credible student? Number 2, your finances. Number 3, what is your post program plans, post-educational plans. That is once you finish your study in the US. Now, first one, how do they ascertain whether you're a qualified and credible student or not? They may ask you questions, right? They may ask you anything under the sun. They may ask you, where did you go to school? Where did you study in India, right? What are your grades? What is your GRE score? Do you have any backlogs? What is your IELTS score? Have you had any internship experience? They may ask you about your project work, anything, they may ask you anything on the sun just to ascertain whether you're qualified and a credible student or not, right? And finances, they just want to make sure that, whether you are willing and capable to pay those fees. If you have any scholarships, you should mention them at the they will know that, but it's better to carry those documents as well. And finally, there would be the post educational plans, right? Now, under here, basically, they would want to know whether you are thinking properly, that you have a proper plan. It's not that, I know that many Indian students go there and tell them that, sir, I promise that, I will be coming back to India. That's not really an answer. What they're looking for is your story, the candidate's story, right? They know the ranking of the university, they know what programs are available. Anybody can know that. They can go to the website and then check, and then they'll find all that information. What they want to know is your story, right? Why does this particular candidate, Suresh, he wants to go to the US? That's what they do not know. That's what they want to know, right? That narrative is what they're interested in, right? Do not be afraid to tell them that, you plan to work in the US, if that's really what's on your mind, right? If you get an opportunity, there are opportunities legally available to you, right? We can discuss about these in detail. In fact, we can do a one-on-one session also if you get an appointment with me, if you want to discuss any of these aspects as well. We can talk about this, and we will of course have visa sessions with the embassy officials, visa officers. You can attend those as well, right? So now let's move on to preparing for your departure. This is essentially, once you get your visa, right before you get onto the flights, we conduct these sessions twice a year, and we talk about all things academic and non-academic here. What are the things that you need to pack? We get people from different walks of life. We get people from the US universities, people who have studied and come back, who are currently studying there, right? All these people will come together and talk to you about all of these things, about insurances, vaccinations, and all those things, your travel arrangements, housing, and all these aspects would also be covered. So once you get your admits, and if you want to attend any of these sessions, you can reach out to your nearest EducationUSA Advisory Center. Now, the current scenario, we are offering a lot of virtual advising, so you may please reach out to any of the nearest EducationUSA Center, or you can reach out to me. I'll put up our contact details. We are present in 7 cities in India: Ahmedabad, Bengaluru, Chennai, Delhi, Hyderabad, Kolkata, Mumbai, and we are all now working as one team virtual. So these are some of the services that we provide virtually. All these are available even on our website. Please go there, and these are some of our numbers. And you can reach out to me on my WhatsApp number as well, 800-846-2560. If you have any specific questions. Now, I think it's time for us to answer some of the questions. Rohanak?
Hey, that was a great session. Thanks so much for that quick overview, Suheil. Let's jump into questions now. Okay, let's see. So the first question is from Sridhar Sharma. He's asking, what are some of the requirements to get a research position? So he's also giving an example like LOR, but he's asking what more can a student do to get positions like that?
Okay, Sridhar, I mean, if you are looking for directly getting into a PhD program in the US, essentially, what they would want to establish is that, again, you are a student who's committed to doing that, because this comes with some sort of a tuition fee waiver or a financial aid that comes in, right? Now, they would want to see if you've already published any works. And if you have not, I think it would be a good idea for you to start exploring that, see if you can publish some papers in the area of your interest. And of course, your letters of recommendation, like you already mentioned, are very important from the concerned professors who can talk about your interest in research and your research capabilities as well, right? That's important. These are the slight differences that make a huge difference. And if you have participated in any national or international conferences, or if you have presented papers, all of these add up, of course. Now, the key here would be to find a school, a professor who would be interested in that area of research. Now, that's the key, keep that also in mind.
This question is from ProK. Sir, what is the difference between MS in CSE and AI/ML? I'm not sure if you could answer that because that's a specific question, but there's a second part to this question. He's also asking, sir, how do we analyze the DNA of schools? So how do you know if the school is a good fit for you?
Right. So just to answer the first part of the question, yes, again, now these are very technical questions. What I would suggest is, go to the program or the course structure, compare both the programs, compare, what are the courses that are on offer, which department is offering that specific program. Now, there could be differences in those as well. So make sure that, you are doing that comparative analysis, and, it's fairly easy for you to answer. And if there are any differences, they would be very visible to you once you do that comparison as well. Now, the other part of the question, how do you look at the DNA, what we call in our nomenclature or in our parlance, what we say is the best fit. If you remember, these are some of the aspects that I have mentioned. Of course, the first one would be the accreditation, which is not mentioned here. Look for the accreditation, and then the key here is what is important for you. Now, the university may be ranked, say, for example, 12th in a specific area. I mean, there is US News, and there is QS. There are a lot of rankings that are available, right? That specific university may be ranked at, say, number 12 or 13 or 15 or whatever, right? Now, that does not mean that is a good fit for everyone. What we would say is check, depending upon the program that you are applying there, make sure that, based on your requirements, you're checking and you're doing your research based on those aspects, like the faculty or the industry connect, right? Whether the university has a good, the region that you go to has good number of companies working in, say, automobile area. If that's your interest, right? For example, right? These are the things that you need to keep in mind when you're choosing a school, that would be a best fit for you. Right? Just be open, explore all these options. And, it's a process, you cannot at the first step, decide that, this is the best school for you, right? Of course, if you just solely go by the rankings, you're free to do that, but usually it's not that way, because you need to take a look at all the other aspects as well. Because I'll just give you an example. A friend of mine, he opted for a PhD program, and then finally he chose a school because he got into considered to be a better school than the other one, but he went to the other one because the financial aid offered there was he thought was much better, and that made the choice for him easier. So keep all of these factors in mind, right? For some, financial aid may not matter, but for some, the location may matter. All this, so keep this in mind while you do your research. All right, I hope that answers the question.
Awesome. So next question is from Vishnudev Chaudhary. He's asking, how important is CGPA? I have a GPA of 6 point from an IIT. Is that a problem?
Right. So now the answer is, I would be like not entirely true if I say that it doesn't matter. But also, when you're applying to a US school, they don't just look at, like I mentioned, just one aspect. They would want to look at multiple aspects, look at your application holistically. Of course, your CGPA makes a huge difference. It depends. Also, it would also, for some students, there would be an option of compensating through something else. Like, say, for example, for some reason, for health reasons or family reasons or whatever, the person was not able to attend enough classes, or there's a dip in the CGPA, but that person has really great GRE score. I mean, you can compensate also, right? Now, it depends again, like, based on your profile. So wherever, if you think that, you're very comfortable with, subject SAT, GRE test, and you can score well there, certainly the universities would consider that as well. They would look at, say, for example, somebody having work experience, for example. Now, again, work experience is not mandatory, but somebody having a very relevant, very niche work experience may work for them. So having said that, so all of these things matter. Not that, just because you have a really good GPA doesn't mean that, your admission is guaranteed. But it does matter. All of these components, aspects matter individually and as well as whole.
The next question is from Mahima Bhatt. I think this is a question I think a lot of students are asking, which is, will the intake of international students be affected following the crisis?
Mahima, like Ronak said, yes, many students have that on their minds now. The students who were supposed to join this fall, they are currently in a sort of tricky situation because of the scenario being, be it in India or lack of flights and things like that. Everybody is trying to work that out. But if you look at the indicators as well, especially if you follow the US universities news, many schools are planning to open up their classes by August, September, with a slight delay maybe, and they have a plan in place. They have many schools are coming up with hybrid school models. Everybody, I mean, this is new to everyone, but everyone is adapting very swiftly, and I have a strong feeling that things should fall in place, by end of this year or early next year, touch with things not going bad on the COVID front. I think, because most universities are adapting very fastly and coming up with whatever innovative options that they have, hybrid classes, not just, online classes, but hybrid model of classes. So I think, I personally feel that, things should fall in place by the end of this year. And once that happens, this everything would be, like it used to be at least.
So Adit is asking, what are the requirements for bachelor's in business administration, financially and academically?
A BS program in the US?
Bachelor's in business administration program.
Okay. Now, see, if you are studying a bachelor's program in the US, it's slightly different. Of course, they would look at your, like I mentioned in the slide there. I can share this slide also, this has some more information as well. They would usually look at your school grades but for school, it would be 9th, 10th, grade equivalent of grade 9, 10, 11, and 12 as well. And also that's what they would look at if you're opting to study whatever program, be it business administration, finance, or psychology, or whatever that you wish to study in the US. These are the things that they would be looking at. And apart from this, it's a little more wider for undergrad studies in the US. They would also be looking at the other components with equal importance, like your extracurriculars. And specifically, say for example, if you are opting for business administration, they would take a very keen look at your essays and try and establish, why do you think that this school is a good fit for you? And also if you have any extracurriculars or relevant experience, right? And when it comes to the finances, I would say it depends on the school. We will try and put some links here, or you can just go to our website, educationusa.state.gov, where you can figure out what would be the cost of attending a specific school. It's very hard for me to say an average number for the schools, and even if I give you an average number, that will not be true, because that may not be the school that you would be choosing, and it could vary hugely, the tuition fee, or the cost of attendance there. So the tuition fee would depend on the school. In terms of requirements, again, mostly they will look at your school and extracurriculars, grade 9, 10, and 11. And yeah, just check the university website is what I would say. That would be the best way.
Absolutely. I mean, the cost could completely vary from university to university and the bachelor level. There's also options where students have gone to community college for 2 years and then transferred, right? This is not a question that's being asked. It's just me. Would you want to talk a bit about that?
Yes. So there's this beautiful concept of community colleges, and they award what is referred to as associate's degree. It's a 2-year program usually, right? Now there has been a lot of meaning associated with community colleges. Going to community college in the US, which may not be the true what you hear online and elsewhere. Because we know people who have gone to community colleges and then transferred to a regular 4-year college, to really, really, really good programs in the US as well. So what happens here is after your 12th, you can opt to go to a community college for 2 years. The admissions requirement, the application procedure for community colleges is very different, and I can say it's simpler than a regular 4-year program, right? Once you go there, you would do your 2 years program. And once you finish your 2 years and get your associate's degree, you can then transfer to a 4-year college where you will finish your remainder of 2 years. So 2 years here and 2 years there, and you will get your undergraduate degree. Now, the only thing that you need to keep in mind here is when you opt for a community college, that community college will have tie up with certain regular colleges only, right? You can only transfer to those colleges. You cannot transfer to a college that does not have understanding with that community college. So keep that in mind. I mean, of course, that is a big net that would be available to you, but I would say do it in a reverse way. Start looking at what is the college that you want to transfer to later, and then try to figure out what are the community colleges in that area, or the tie-ups that specific college has with the community colleges. Yeah, and of course, the tuition also is less at community college. That's a very popular route for many Indian students these days. We can talk about this in the, later as well. So let's move on to other questions now.
Talking about transfers, there's this question from Sindhuja Vadeboina. She's asking, can you give information on international transfer in junior year from academic college, from an Indian college like NIT? And also, can you change your stream then?
Okay, now transfers, yes, they are very much possible. What I will also do is I will share, we have a handout on, a brochure on, how you can do the transfers, but I'll try and answer that question briefly here as well. So you can certainly do the transfer, but then the key would be the university would want to know why is that you want to transfer at this point of time. You can even change the stream, no problem. Again, you should be able to explain it to the university, convince the university why is that you want to do that, right? And if they are convinced, and if you have a good profile and a good answer for that, you can certainly do that. But then usually also what happens is because of the differences in the semester system, you could be, I mean, not necessary, but you could be at a minor loss in terms of credits. Maybe you have to go there and do a few extra credits if required. But theoretically, yes, you can. Many people also opt for that. But just that you have to convince them. Why do you want to transfer at this point of time? And if you're transferring at depending upon which year you are, you have to convince them, why do you want to do that? And if you're transferring from first year here, they may also want to take a look at not just at, like I already mentioned, not just at your school grades, but certainly at the performance that you had done at the institute that you have already enrolled in India.
Okay, awesome. The next question is from Srivatsa. Hello, sir. I've finished my MSc Physics. What are the requirements of GPA, GRE scores, TOEFL scores for admission to MS by research or PhD in physics, along with the scholarship in a renowned college? What all add-on skills can we develop to boost our profile or application?
Okay, just if I heard it correct, he's intending to do a master's and then a PhD in the US?
No, this is the person has already finished MSc in physics, and now they intend to do a PhD in physics, and
Okay,
is
yeah,
asking
got it.
about GRE, GMAT, all
Sure.
that stuff.
Srivatsav, what you need to do is, first, your area of research, and our website has some of the links where you can start looking for colleges, or even Rohana can help you with how you can start your initial research. The key here would be to get in touch with the departments or the schools that are offering that research in that area first. That would be the key. And now, I've already mentioned that the emphasis would be on your research capability and your research writings and your if you have participation at conferences, right? These are the things that they will look at. And the thing with the PhD is, I may have missed to mention this earlier, is it's very flexible. Right now, if the professor of the university thinks that he or she wants you in, they can give you a lot of concessions, a lot of concessions. Sometimes you don't have to give your English proficiency test, or you can just apply separately. Depends. Or you may just have to go through the regular route. It all depends on the professor and the department that you're applying to. The requirements, again, it differs from university to university. So please go to the university or to the concerned department and check for the requirements. But the key here would be to find a school or a professor who's interested in your research.
I absolutely, I mean, this is a very underrated thing. Students don't realize they can just write an email and get the information directly from the professor, and they won't have to worry too much about it. And especially because from university to university, the requirements could vary so much. So it makes a lot of sense to just take that small effort and do that. Hey, we are already at 1 hour of time, and we have about 52 questions left. So I don't know how, I don't think we can take 52 questions, but maybe I can pick a couple of them which seem to be overall useful for everyone. Is that okay, Suheil?
Sure, Ronak, we can do that. Even if we go beyond by a few minutes, it's okay. But we have a way to answer all those questions as well, right? So
Absolutely. So we will be announcing a way where all your questions can be answered. On the chat, if you can see, in case your question is not answered, Suheil and team would personally answer them. Submit the questions here, and there's a link there. You can use that link to put in all your questions. So let's take a couple more generic questions now, which could be useful for all people. For everyone. Hey, this is a good question. This is from Sriram KR. What is a need blind application of scholarship? Is it possible to get full financial aid?
Okay, now that is for undergrad, right? Now, need blind is basically when the schools in the US do not check at your requirements for the finances. Now, the need blind schools for international students, which is Indian nationals or other nationals, are hardly about 8 schools in the US, if I'm not wrong. That's all. These are the only schools that are need blind. And unfortunately, if you're not a US citizen, you will not be considered in any other school for need blind admission. What was the second part of the question, Rohan?
It's just what is the need blind and what are the chances of getting a full scholarship?
Okay, now Undergrad, it's highly competitive, and you will be competing with a lot of people there. Now, need blind, like I said, only 8 schools that basically will not look at your financial requirements. They would put, as I say, if you say that, I need 70% of financial, if I say that, I require 70% of financial aid, right? They don't care about it. All they would do is take a look at my profile alone and then make an admission decision at need blind schools. Whereas at need aware schools, what they would also do is, they would check at the requirements. Now, somebody who's saying that, I am okay even getting like up to 10% or 15% or no scholarship also. Now, if the profiles are similar, this person with no requirement for scholarships may have an advantage there, right? Now, and of course, need blind schools are only 8 or so, 7 or 8 for international students.
We have about 81 questions. I'm sure we can't
Wow.
wait. Just a couple more now.
Sure,
This
sure.
question is from Bharat. Is there any age restriction in doing MBA and MS programs?
Bharat, no, there's no age restriction as such, no.
Sudarshan is asking, what exactly is the difference between priority deadline and regular deadline? Will these applications be treated differently?
Now, priority deadline, like I mentioned, is when you are, again, it's not common for all universities, only some universities will have this. If you're seeking for financial aid, the universities may call in for a priority deadline, right? Now, is there a difference? That's a very, yes, there will be a certain difference, because this is from the interaction that, we've had with the universities and other things. In terms of financing, definitely not otherwise though. But if somebody is looking for financing, and if they miss the priority deadline, when there is a priority deadline, obviously, your chances of getting a financial package or a scholarship will definitely go down, right? If you apply a little later. That's the only difference that you need to keep in mind.
This next question might be again applicable to a lot. Umeshwar Shankar is asking, in India, we follow GPA on a scale of 1 to 10, while in the US it's 1 to 4. How can we convert this and how will it be looked at?
Okay, now many schools in the US, in fact, most schools in the US are aware of the Indian system, right? You don't really have to worry about it. You will just, and in fact, that's what we tell most of the students is when they open the application, they get, overwhelmed and sometimes, they get worried. Don't really worry. Get in touch with the university. Tell them that, this is there. These are the marks system that we have, and you enter them, and then they will have the scanned copies of the marks memos as well, right, and the transcripts. So they will do it by themselves for most schools. But if they are not willing to do that, they will very specifically and categorically tell you that, please get them transcribed. There are testing services like WES. They would do it for you for a nominal fee. That would be mentioned, that would be clearly stated whether it's required or not. So for most Indian schools, they're aware of the Indian system, so they do not require that.
This question is from Jitan Kumar. He's asking what all should be included in a SOP, and if I may add a slight bit more, for the perspective of a student who's about to graduate and for the perspective of someone who's got some years of experience.
Okay, in the statement of purpose. Right, that's a very good question. In fact, see, again, there is a handout available, which will be made available to you later, I suppose, or you can email us, or Rohana can get that. That has all the detail, the brochures in there. The key here would be that, you narrate or you tell the university how you think that you are a good fit for the school and the program. That should come out. Right now, you don't have a whole lot of space there. You cannot write, go on writing about, for pages and pages. It would just, there would be a limit to it, a 1-pager usually, 2 pages maximum, right? And now this needs to be conveyed how you think that you are a good fit for that program and how you plan to benefit from that program. Right? This is what the university wants to know. Please do not mention things like your marks can talk about, or your other certificates can talk about, or your other professors can talk about. Right? All that is already there. This is something qualitative. That's something that marks will not, or the transcripts will not talk about. These are the things that you should be including in your statement of purpose. When I read a statement of purpose, I should know your story. right? And I should be convinced that, yes, this person knows what exactly or why this person wants to come here and why he or she thinks that, this school and the program is the best fit for them, right? Like I mentioned, we'll be doing specialized sessions in future. So we will be talking a lot in detail about these. And there are some basic handouts available which you can access as well.
Okay, I guess this is the last question, but this is a question that I think a good majority of Indian students have a fear of, and I would want you to clarify this once and for all. So does coming from a tier 2 college affect our admission in a good university?
Admission in a good university? This answer is actually no, right? Now, but in the whole lot of scheme of things, like I mentioned some time back, they would look at all of these aspects individually and as well holistically as well, right? So, for example, somebody coming from a tier 2 college or a tier 2 city or whatever, it doesn't matter, right? And but if you are credentials and if your grades are meeting the requirements of that college, right, and then you easily would get into it. But the thing is, see, of course, matters, the brand name and all of that will come into play, but then you need to, like I mentioned, like the aspects of your application package itself, you just sometimes probably need to compensate with something else, right? You certainly need to have very good LORs, letters of recommendation, or through your marks. If you can convince the school that you're applying to that you meet all their requirements, then the school that you go to doesn't matter. And for visas, absolutely no, it doesn't matter at all which school you attend to.
Awesome. Hey, we are over time. We have a good number of questions, but I would like to just repeat again that you can ask your questions through the link that is right now on your chat. Unfortunately, we won't be able to take more questions, but please do write here and those questions will get answered. Now I'd like to invite Paresh Masade, our founder, to give the closing note.
Sure. Just any in this presentation.
Suheil, you could stop your screen share.
Yeah. So thank you very much, Suheil, for that wonderful session. You actually answered a lot of questions, and all the audience participants, please use that form that's in the chat that's available. We will make sure that each of those questions get answered. Suheil is very responsive to everything. They answer almost, and all of the services that Education USA offers is for free. You can actually ask any questions for them, and they respond to all of them. You don't have to worry about that. Just make sure that you ask the right question, be prepared to ask interaction with him. And so we will do more further sessions specifically on topics that are relevant in specific, go in depth. This was more generic session. We'll try to answer more specific questions based on the questions that you listed down. We'll come back to you. Thank you, Suheil, very much for this session. It's been quite some time that we've been trying to get you on the call, and we see a lot of people actually asking a lot of questions. Thank you very much for that 1 hour that you spent. It's very enlightening for the students.
Thank you, Paresh and Ronak, for this opportunity, and I'm always happy to see these many questions. And let's get on to answering as many as we can now. Yeah, thank you once again. Thank you so much.
And at the end of the call, you'll also get a feedback form that automatically comes up on your window. Please do submit your feedback. Tell us know about how the session is. Thank you.
Definitely. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everyone.